Sammie, I can't hear you.
How about now?
That much when you have the mic close to the mouth, it works amazingly.
That might be useful, right? All right. So thank you, Darlene. And wow, both of y'all sessions have just been really, really amazing. And I can definitely tell you, what Darlene is saying about weight is completely true because let's see, I was like 170, which is the most I'd ever been in my life. And I've just always been a really small person. And when I started working on healing, that is when things started actually changing for me. Before that, I couldn't figure it out. It didn't matter that I started eating healthier and exercised and all that. So, yeah, you would be surprised how many levels doing this type of healing work will actually affect you on. But yeah, before we really get started with everything that I'm going to talk about today, let me ask y'all something. How many of you caught yourself in one of those moments that we talked about yesterday, between yesterday and now? And then you went right ahead and you did the thing anyway. You reacted, you people pleased, whatever it was for you. Okay, that's perfect. I'm serious. That's actually really perfect because that means that you actually did the work. If because if that's what happened, then that means yesterday did exactly what it was supposed to do. See, yesterday wasn't about changing your life overnight. That doesn't realistically happen. Yesterday was just about starting to notice something. And if you started to notice, then that's all we needed. Give me a second because I just realized my laptop wasn't plugged in and it wants to start dying now instead of like right before now, right? Me and electronics. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So if you notice, that means that you made progress. That's really what yesterday was about, is starting to notice those moments more. Not wait afterwards, like when they're happening, which we did also talk about how awareness isn't the answer. And just noticing those moments isn't going to fix it, right? So we're going to go deeper than that today. So maybe you had one of those moments yesterday where you noticed the pattern and you still did it anyway. Maybe afterwards you caught yourself thinking, seriously, I knew better than this. Why do I keep doing it? And I've had those moments a lot too. I still have those moments to this day, a lot less than I used to, definitely, but I still have those moments. And for a long time, I really thought that it meant that I wasn't self-aware enough or that maybe I wasn't disciplined enough. And looking back, I actually think that I was really just trying to solve a problem with my nervous system, with willpower, and just trying to be more disciplined and figure it all out. And that doesn't really work. And then I noticed something completely different. Have you ever been sitting there and you're literally watching yourself do the thing? It's like, don't say it, but then you say it anyway, or don't apologize, and then you're apologizing again. For me, I would be blowing up because my big thing was anger, a lot of anger, because I'd let people push me around for so long and not have my needs met for so long. Eventually, I couldn't handle it anymore. But I would be in my head the whole time, like, just calm the fuck down. What are you doing? Just stop. The whole time I'm in my head, but that didn't change anything. I still kept going. But isn't that kind of strange? Because if part of you already knew, then the awareness is already there, right? We already have that awareness. And that question really changed everything for me because if awareness was already there, then that's not the thing that's missing. And don't get me wrong, like I was saying yesterday, awareness really matters. It's where the whole journey begins. But it doesn't automatically change what happens next. I get so frustrated. You can ask Sean, I'll be watching a video. I'm like, this is good. I like what this guy is saying. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? We're back to awareness again? Because that's all I hear anyone talking about. And then they end with it. And it drives me crazy because that is the beginning of the journey, not the end of it. It's the very, very beginning. And I think that's why so many people are really, really frustrated right now because they're hearing awareness and be more disciplined and try harder. And they've been doing that. It doesn't fucking work. I did it for most of my life. Like my dad listened to Tony Robbins and was an entrepreneur. He loved that quote that is one of my favorite. Whether you think you can or you can't, you will. I knew all this stuff for a really, really long time. I went to therapy for years. It didn't change that I still was sabotaging myself every time I turned around. So maybe the question that we need to be asking isn't why do I keep reacting, but what happened right before I reacted? Because I don't actually think that the reaction is where the pattern begins at all. I think something happened first. Like Darlene was talking about, like that underlying need that was there. So I'm curious, have you ever had one of those moments where afterwards you think, like, my body knew this. My body knew before I did. Maybe you didn't have the words for it at the time, but you just knew something felt different. Maybe something inside of you tightened, or just the way you felt shifted, or you felt your stomach drop. Something inside of your body started paying attention, whether you had the words for it or your mind had the thoughts for it or not. Your mind catches up to all of it later. And I really think that's interesting because if your body is what's noticing first, then maybe that's where we need to start practicing. We've been spending all this time in our heads trying to figure it out. Maybe that's not where we need to be. Not after we've already reacted. Like I said, I would be in my head telling myself, what are you doing? Just stop. But if we can start catching it when our body is noticing, that's when we can start actually making a difference. So go ahead and get your companion guide out, and we're going to go to the page, What Has Been Revealed. It should be the second page that has my picture on it. The first one is just like if you want to take random notes. So yeah, what has been revealed? So I want you to think back to since when we were together last night and we're talking last night. Not your whole entire life. We're just thinking about since yesterday's session. And I want you to write down one moment that you noticed. What was happening? What made you pause for just a second and think, that's interesting? Don't overthink this. Don't try to make it profound. If you have to go back a little bit further, that's okay too. Maybe the past day hasn't been that eventful for you. But just notice what you noticed. I'm gonna give y'all just a minute here. Okay, awesome. So, did anything come up for anyone that they would be willing to share? You can drop it in the chat or unmute. It's up to you if you feel like
Turn the
sharing.
mic down.
Thank you. Did y'all hear any of that, or do I need to repeat? Okay, awesome. All right. I said, would anyone want to be willing to share something that came up for them? If you want to, you can unmute or drop it in the chat. It's also totally fine if nobody wants to share as well. Sometimes we need time to actually process things for a little while. And also, sometimes it's hard to feel safe in a space like this to share with people, especially usually when I'm doing talks where I'm having people share, we have like group commitments ahead of time where we're all like, you know, we're saying we're going to keep each other's privacy and all of those things. And we don't have that here. So safety is a big deal. And I get that. So yeah, let's keep going forward. And yeah, like I was saying, sometimes awareness really happens before we have the words for it too. So maybe you don't even realize entirely what you're noticing yet. That's okay too. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to like process this to really actually have a concrete way to describe it. And that's also why I had you write it down. I know a lot of times I write something down and then I go back and like I add so much more to it later. So, yeah, right now it's mainly about noticing it. You don't have to figure out a way to explain it or anything like that. But what I do want to say is that both in my own life and the people that I've worked with, what I have noticed is that almost every pattern starts before the reaction. Something shifts first. Maybe it's a thought that you had, or a feeling, or your body starts paying attention before you even have a thought. Whatever it is, now that we're starting to notice it, you can really start actually doing work on having choice. So let's go back to that moment that we were using yesterday. Maybe it was a conversation or a text. If you weren't here yesterday, we were just talking about um, a moment that wasn't crazy triggering or anything like that, but just where you showed up, maybe not in a way that you're the most proud of, not in a way that you would have liked to. So maybe you caught yourself people pleasing, or maybe you shut down, or you are overthinking. Whatever your moment was, I want you to think about what actually happened right before the reaction. Don't think about what you did or what you said, just what happened right before that reaction took everything over. And here's the thing, most of us can tell the story of the reaction, right? Think about it for a second. If I asked you what happened during the argument, you could probably tell me every little detail. You could tell me who said what happened next, how it ended. But if I asked you what happened inside of you, especially 5 seconds before that started, most of us aren't really sure of that. And it's not because nothing happened. I think that's where everything happens. See, the thing is, it's really, 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 really fast. So by the time that it gets to your head, there's like not a chance of stopping it anymore. So that's why it's really important to start noticing this because once it gets to your head, you're already reacting. You're already in the reaction. When we start noticing the body, then you can take a breath. Then you can step away for a second. Then you actually have a chance of not repeating the pattern again. And that realization really changed a lot for me because I used to think that the reaction was my problem. Of course, like, how is it not the problem? This is me getting angry and blowing up. Like, that's a problem. So I focused on fixing the reaction. That was where all my focus went. I need to not get angry. I need to figure this out. And I'd tell myself over and over again, next time, I'm not going to do that. But then the next time came and I did it again and again and again. So I started wondering, what if we're looking at the wrong place? See, what if that reaction isn't where the change happens? It happens a few minutes earlier. So I want you to go back to your workbook to the moment before, and we're going to slow this down for a minute. So go back to the situation that you've been thinking about. And this time, I don't want you to write about what you did. I want you to just get curious about what happened first. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes here, and I want you to see if you can think about what happened right before the reaction. Notice what you were feeling. What story did your brain immediately start telling you? As humans, we delete and distort a lot. We're famous for using words like always and never. And usually that's not the case. That's not what's actually true. So, what story did your brain start telling you? Remember, your body is going to notice before your mind does usually. So, what did your body want to do? And don't worry about getting any of it right. There's not a right answer here. We're just slowing this moment down enough so that you can see what you've been missing. I'm going to give you like 2 minutes here to really think about that and write it down. So, you know what I really think is interesting? We didn't just have to spend an hour analyzing ourselves. We didn't have to go searching through our entire childhood. All we did was slow down one moment. And I bet if you really pay attention and look at what you wrote, and look back at this later, you're going to see that you've actually figured out a lot. So I wonder how many of us would have told the exact same story yesterday. And then you wouldn't have even noticed at all what had happened the 5 seconds beforehand or what you felt in your body. That's the power of really slowing things down, even if you have to do it afterwards. The thing is, sometimes we don't need a brand new answer. Sometimes we just need to see something that we've been moving too fast to notice. And in the world that we live in, everything's faster. We want everything faster. Everyone wants us to move faster, get things done faster. It's hard to slow down and notice these things. But once you see it, you don't really unsee it. And it's it's really helpful if you let it be. It can also be really frustrating because then it's like, oh, you see these things now, and if you're not actually doing anything with it, it make you feel like shit. But yeah, so I don't think that the change starts with the reaction. Like I was saying, that's the way I used to feel, that I needed to fix the reaction, that I had to figure that out and change that. But I think it starts with the moment right before. That's where our answers lie. Because if we can learn to recognize that moment, then we start realizing something really, really important. We start realizing there actually was a choice there. And maybe at first it won't feel like it at all. At first, it'll probably still happen so fast that you won't actually have access to the choice. But it was there, and you can see that now. And just starting to see that a different option is there is a big start. And the more that you practice noticing that moment, the more available that choice is going to become to you. And to me, that's where self-trust actually starts growing. Self-trust isn't becoming someone who never reacts anymore or someone that always gets it right. It comes because little by little, you become someone who can actually stay present long enough to choose how you want to respond and show up how you want to show up. So, if there really is a moment before the reaction, why don't we just choose differently, right? I mean, if we know now, why do we still do it? Just like with the awareness. And I think this is where a lot of people get really, really hard on themselves. Because, like I said, once you unsee it, you can't, or once you see it, you can't unsee it. So now we know that there is that moment before, but it still doesn't automatically make you able to choose differently. So that's frustrating still, right? Because you start thinking, again, I know better. I should have been able to handle that different. I've done all this work, so why do I still react like this? And then we start making it mean something about us again. We let it become our identity. We let it mean that we're failing or that we're not trying hard enough. And then it feels like all the healing work that we did is for nothing sometimes. So I want to give you another way that you can look at it. I don't think that it's because you don't know better, obviously. It's because your survival self still got there first. And that's not because you were weak or not because you're broken or because all of the healing that you've been doing isn't working. It's because of it being the path that you practice the most. Like Darlene was talking about with what's familiar. That's what we go to first. When life starts feeling overwhelming, that's where we're going to go. That's what I've seen like in my own life and with everyone else, our brains always go back to what feels the most familiar because that is what feels safe. So when you've lived in survival, you want safety. And another thing I really wanted to mention too is I've noticed that people really love saying just pause. I love just pause. But like realistically, how many people have told you how? People love to say just pause, but then leave it at that. Like, okay, I'd love to pause right now, but my heart is racing, my stomach is tied in knots, and my brain is already halfway through the argument that hasn't even started yet. So how the hell am I supposed to pause right now? So yeah, I found that to be like really unhelpful a lot of times. So my question is always, okay, how? Because the answer isn't try harder. I also say that. I think what we actually need to do is build the ability to stay with ourselves. That's why I always talk about safety and capacity. That's where real change comes from. Even if it's just a tiny bit longer, that matters because the longer that we can start to stay present with ourselves, the more available that choice actually becomes. Right now, you don't feel safe showing up in a different way. When you learn to stay present with yourself and start feeling safe with that emotion, that other person can come out. And it's not because you became a different person. It's because you finally gave yourself enough space to choose to take off that mask, to let the person that's been underneath those survival spells come out. So instead of just talking about this, we're going to practice things that a thing I like to walk my clients through really quick. This is like my favorite exercise. So yeah, I call it the sovereign pause. And it's not magic. It doesn't just make uncomfortable situations automatically not be uncomfortable anymore, but it helps you to start practicing something different and start interrupting the pattern. And it's something that I use over and over again, and my clients really love too. So I'd love for you to just practice this with me really quick. Before we do, I want to say this real quick. I know Darlene mentioned something about this yesterday, but we're not going to choose the biggest, most painful thing that you've ever been through. You can use the same thing we've been working through, or you can pick something else. But this isn't about seeing how much you can handle. We're not trying to be the one that endures right now. This is about practicing a new skill. So just think of a moment from the past week, if you can, where you felt a little bit activated, whether it was a conversation or maybe a text someone sent or a boundary that wasn't respected, something that made you uncomfortable, but it still feels manageable to think about. Because you need to be able to stay present with yourself. That's the whole point of this. Okay. So once you have that moment, I want you to just let it come to your mind and you don't have to fix it. We're just noticing it. I want you to notice it exactly the way it happened. If it's easier for you, go ahead and close your eyes and just let that moment come back. Almost like you're watching a movie. You're not in that moment, you're just watching it, just noticing. Notice where you are. Notice who's there with you. Just let your mind really settle into that moment. And as you watch, I want you to just get curious. Start to notice what is happening inside of you. Don't overthink it. We're just noticing. Is something that I've learned is that our bodies notice what's happening before our minds have words for it. Maybe your chest feels tight or your stomach drops. Maybe you feel like you need to defend yourself all of a sudden or explain yourself. Maybe it feels like you need to shut down and shut everyone out. Whatever it is, don't judge it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to understand it. Just notice it. And let me tell you why we're doing this real quick. Because the chances are that you probably practiced that old response more times than you could ever count. So today, I'm just giving you a chance to practice something different. It's really hard to choose a different response if your nervous system never gets the chance to slow down first. Now I want you to take one slow, deep breath in through your nose. And then we're going to take an even slower exhale out through your mouth. And we're going to do that again. Slow, deep inhale, longer exhale. And this is really important because the slow exhale being longer out, that automatically signals to your brain that you're safer. And that's like a science thing. It calms your nervous system down. It definitely doesn't make you perfectly safe, but just safe enough to stay. And we're going to take another deep breath here. And while you're breathing, I want you to just remind yourself, I'm safe. Remind yourself that it's safe to feel what you're feeling. Most people have never told themselves that before. And a lot of times when you've experienced trauma, when you're going into a reactive state, it's partially because you're going back to what happened. So telling yourself you're safe helps bring you back to this moment. And just notice if that feels any different at all. Maybe you feel 5 to 10% safer after telling yourself that it's safe to feel that way. That's all we're trying to do. You don't need to make it 100% safe. Just a little more space. It's a little bit safer than it was a minute ago. We're not trying to ever make the feeling completely disappear. Sometimes we need to feel those feelings. They're guides. You're just teaching yourself that you don't have to abandon yourself when those feelings come up. It's very human for us to avoid being uncomfortable and pain. But every time you stay, every time you're able to take an extra breath, you're teaching your nervous system that you can handle all of these moments differently. And now, once you've slowed things down just a little bit and you've made it feel just a tiny bit safer, I want you to ask yourself if my sovereign self or leading right now, what's one small thing I would do? If you showed up as your sovereign self in that moment, what would she do? Not the perfect thing, not the whole conversation, just one small thing. And don't rush to figure this out. Just notice what naturally feels different. Notice how she would want to show up. Maybe it's even in something that you don't say. Maybe it's just the fact that you stayed with yourself at all. Whatever it is for you, just know that that's enough. Right? And when you're ready, you can come back to this present moment. And that's it. And you can do that in like a way shorter way too, to like, I like to tell my clients to use this throughout their life. When you react a lot in situations, use that exercise and go back and revisit that moment and slow it down a little bit. Allow yourself to feel a little bit safer. That way, the next time that moment comes up, you can stay more present. And also, I used to just do it with making it feel safer, but then I added that second part because the thing is, your brain doesn't actually know the difference between a very vivid imagination with emotion attached to it and what actually happens. So when we're visualizing ourselves showing up as our sovereign self, we're showing our brain that that person already exists, that is already there, and that a new pattern can be followed, that we don't have to follow the same thing. We're creating that familiarity without the thing actually having to happen. And that's a really good way to start building safety and capacity. That's why I love that exercise so much. And you never have to get it perfect. It's all about practice. So, yeah, just making yourself feel safer and allowing yourself to know there's a different response can go really, really far and help something else feel familiar for you. But yeah, you don't have to become someone completely different and go digging through every bit of your childhood to start changing things. A lot of it is actually really, really small things that we can start shifting, working on a daily basis, just one way to show up as the version of yourself that you want to be. That's all it takes. And I really love that because I think sometimes we believe that change has to look like really crazy dramatic. But if you've ever learned to play an instrument or drive a car or cook a complicated dish or something like that, that's not actually how it works. That's what I try to tell my kids all the time. They're like, oh, I want to be good at this. And they expect overnight they're just going to be skilled at this. And I'm like, no, I don't care if you're looking like the top pro in that thing in the world. They practice. They had to learn the thing. They didn't just overnight become good at it. It takes one repetition at a time. And then eventually what once felt impossible starts feeling familiar. Just like my driving story yesterday. Eventually, you're driving home and you don't even know how you got there. I don't know how healthy that is of us, but it happens. But yeah, I don't think that we become that sovereign version of ourselves by making one big decision. We build it. And do that by making one small choice at a time and practicing it over and over and over again. So, yeah, that's how we're going to really make changes and really start healing. And I really think that's what self-trust is too. I keep hearing self-trust defined really, really wrong, in my opinion, really, really wrong. Because it's not confidence and it's not always having the right answer. I've also heard people say it's intuition, which intuition is really wonderful. But if you don't have self-trust, you don't trust that intuition. I've seen a lot of people that thought they had really, really wonderful intuition end up like in the same really, really shitty patterns over and over again because they were actually just kind of listening to something else going on in there and not actually trusting their inner compass. When you have self-trust, see, I heard something. He was talking about intuition. And he was talking about how intuition should never create like stress and anxiety. Like it shouldn't create this thing where you're like, oh, I've got to go make a pro and con list now. I've got to figure this out. It should bring clarity. So if that's not happening, then there's something going on. And usually we can't trust our intuition without self-trust because then we're questioning. We don't know if we can actually trust it or not. Is that the intuition or am I thinking something in my head? So I think it's really two very, very different things. It's not never getting triggered. To me, self-trust is knowing that even when life gets hard, that I can come back to myself. It doesn't always happen perfectly. And, every single time I don't show up how I want to. I still have times where I react, but it happens more often than it did before. And every time I do, I get to prove to myself that I have more choice than I used to, that I don't have to be that same version of me that I was before. And I don't know about you, but I think that that is a really, really incredible thing. And that if all it takes is practicing that every day, that's a pretty good trade. Like all we have to do is practice and literally everything gets easier. Okay, I'm down for that. And another thing too is I think sovereignty really looks like not controlling the situations. That is such a big problem that we have today. We want to control everything. And in this spiritual world, I feel like so many people define sovereignty or like being healed or whatever you want to call it as not ever struggling, like not struggling to show up as the person that you want to be or anything like that. And I don't think that's true at all. It's really about learning to lead yourself. We do that one choice and one moment at a time. It doesn't come overnight. It doesn't, I don't think it magically ever ends either. Like this is a journey we're on that we're constantly building safety and capacity. So, anyway, before we wrap up, I don't want you leaving here thinking that you have to remember all of the stuff that we talked about today. Really, I hope you don't, because like if you're just trying to memorize, that's not going to actually help you make that much change. The point wasn't for you to just remember a bunch of things. Also, you have access to the replays for like a month. So you don't have to worry about remembering it all. You can come back to it all. Because I don't think that transformation comes from you hearing the perfect sentence one time or sitting through the perfect workshop. It comes from us actually practicing a different choice. And we do that one moment at a time. So between now and tomorrow, if you're coming to VIP, or just try this for the next week or next month, don't try to be perfect at all. Don't try to catch every single pattern because they're going to come. Just try to start noticing the moment before. Focus on that tiny moment where everything starts speeding up. And sometimes you'll catch it, sometimes you won't. That's why we did that exercise. So you can take those moments and you can go back to them. And tomorrow we're going to go like way deeper with that exercise too. But either way, it doesn't matter if you catch it every single time. You're not going to. And that's okay. See, every time you notice it, you're strengthening something. You're building the ability to stay with yourself. You're building the ability to make a choice. And then over time, those moments will become you having choice more often than you don't. And then those choices really become a whole different way of living, a whole different reality. My life is crazy different from what it used to be, really. So, yeah. Anyway, if you are sitting there thinking, like, okay, I really don't know where to go from here, like, this was great, but how is this going to actually help moving forward? I get that because 2 days can really change how you see things and shift your perspective, but they don't actually help you, really change things moving forward entirely or really practice it. So that's why I created what I call the alchemy shift. And I also created like a founding member experience because it's new. So I really wanted to make sure that this wasn't just another course that you would go through because I don't think that's really what people need these days. So this is actually a guided experience. And in this, we'll continue practicing everything that we've been talking about over these past couple of days. Um, you get the modules 1 week at a time. There's a couple of different videos. The videos are never more than 20 minutes long. But yeah, we go through it all one lesson at a time, one choice at a time, because that's how we actually start building self-trust. So, as a founding member, you have lifetime access to the program and any future updates that'll be done to it. And then also, one thing that you'll get for being a founding member that everyone else won't get is that you'll get the group coaching calls that happen bi-weekly for as long as they happen, which will be forever because it's going to be in my school community. So that's just like a never ending thing. So usually like after the founding member thing ends, people will get like 8 weeks of the coaching and then that'll be it. I might do 10. But if you do this, you get it forever. So yeah, I don't want people to just understand this stuff. I want people to actually start living it and practicing it because I know what it's like to be hopeless and basically hate yourself and be destroying your relationships. And like I have my kids basically hated me for a little while, and I completely understand why. And I didn't want to be that person. So I get it. And I know how much it sucks. And that is why I do this now because I want other people to be able to experience that transformation too. So, also, maybe you're listening thinking that you really don't even know what your next step is yet, and that's okay too. And that's one of the reasons that I love having my free complimentary calls. I call them alchemy calls because I just love alchemy. But yeah, just like Darlene was saying, it's not a sales call. I'm not here to try to convince you to come do my thing. This is really more about having an honest conversation that can bring you more clarity than you trying to figure this all out on your own. And we'll just talk about where you are and what you've been noticing and have a real conversation and figure out what can help you, whether that's working with me or not. I'm going to actually give you something that can help you either way. Because I have spent so many times on calls with coaches where it's like, I'll tell them up front, like, I'm not trying to invest in something right now. And they're like, okay, that's cool. It's fine. Let's just get on a call and talk. I'll see what I can do to help you out. And then they just want to offer me their thing. That's really frustrating. So I don't want to do that, people. So this is legitimately about being helpful. And then if you're interested in what I'm doing, we can talk about that too. But I'm here to help first. But also, I know that sometimes one conversation is all you really need to see something Sometimes we're too close to it and we need just like a different perspective to try to notice something else. So definitely just book a call with me. I do not have my link handy. I was not smart about that, like Darlene, but I'll definitely send it out in an email later along with Darlene so that you can access that. And I'm sure Miranda has a link like that as well that we can send out. So yeah, and before I finish, if you haven't signed up for VIP yet, you should do it. It's going to be really, really amazing. Y'all saw what Miranda did today, and Miranda's journeys are always incredible. I've done one of the intuitive programs she's had with, I did the last one she did with all the shadows. So her journeys are always different every single time. You saw what we did with Darlene today, and hers are always really unique. I always get some really surprising insights from that. And then what I did today, we're going to go way, way deeper with that. I'm going to use some of my NLP and hypnosis skills mixed in there to really shift some things for you. So yeah, we're going to like really practice and embody this stuff tomorrow so that your brain, your body, and your nervous system and your soul can all feel this stuff and get a chance to experience something different together. And this is really going to go way, way deeper than what we did today. So if you haven't upgraded yet, there's still time. I'm really honestly, I haven't mentioned this to Darlene and Miranda yet, but I'm sure they won't care. Like, I'm probably just going to leave the VIP open because if they want to buy it later and just get the replays, that's cool too. So at
Good.
least until now, you have until right before to buy it. But yeah. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Miranda and Darlene, for doing this with me again. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for being willing to get curious instead of just immediately jumping to judging yourself. That's not always an easy thing to do. This isn't easy work. It's not easy to take the mask off and look at what's underneath it. And think about like when you've been wearing a Halloween mask, right? Sometimes it's like really icky and stinky under there afterward. Like if you've got kids and they're wearing a ball cap, think about that. You know, it's not always pretty to take these masks off and look at first. So I just want to say thank you for having the courage and giving yourself the chance to do that because we've been looking at a lot and that's not easy. But remember, you're not your patterns. You're not the survival spells that you learned, and you're not broken. They're just ways that you learn to protect yourself. And if you learn that, then you can learn something completely different too. So don't try to change it all. Just start noticing and notice that you can change it and do something different too. All right, that is it. I will stop this recording.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.